This is the Day Zero update for March 1st, 2015. I'm Filippo.
I'm Patrick Mifflin.
I'm Brandon Perkins.
And I'd like to give a shout out to all 103 of our YouTube subscribers who we've kind of hit a milestone, so that's pretty cool. I hope we'll eventually get maybe 100 or 100,000 more at some point. That'd be nice.
Yes, that would be nice.
Yeah, we got to start
We
somewhere.
need your internet money.
Yeah.
We need your internet money.
Yeah. Got to pay the servers.
Liquid capital.
Yeah. So, none in mind. What have you guys been playing this week?
Well, I'm still on Dead or Alive 5 whenever I can find the time to play a few rounds.
Yeah.
Things have been a little bit busy on my end, but I've been picking up a couple matches here and there, or just doing some combo trials or whatever I can fit in. Ridge Racers 2, I still haven't got any more videos up. I'm kind of lagging behind on that, also due to the same non-gaming issues I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And then finally there's for those who have been following Voice of Dissent, I've started Final Fantasy VIII for that. Just like Suikoden, it's not going to be a complete playthrough, but it'll be enough to get the point across of what of what really just bothers me about that game, and some
There
more,
are definitely a couple of things.
demonstrated criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I said,
I made a very good initial point in that first episode. So for those who haven't seen that, check that out.
like I said before, as much as problems that Final Fantasy VIII has, it was the first Final Fantasy game I finished, so it's still has some nostalgic appeal to me.
Yeah.
But it's definitely got some major flaws.
I think the best way to have a good time playing Final Fantasy VIII is to have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because the moment you do understand how to play it and what you're up to, what you're trying to do, you will take a completely... just watch the episode. I demonstrate it quite well.
Yes.
It's one of those things you kind of have to experience for yourself to get.
Yeah.
It was an hour episode, and I still haven't set foot in the fire cavern yet. So,
Yeah.
so how about you, Phil?
Well, there's obligatory mention of Defense Grid 2.
Yes.
This time on the Xbox One, just to change things up a little bit. Been playing, Dead or Alive 5 last round as well. Not been able to get any ranked matches to work because the game crashes. So that's great. Yeah. Team
Patch
Ninja.
is out for that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that later, see if it actually fixes the issues. Yeah. They're plenty happy to push DLC, but fixing the game, they have problems with that apparently.
Yeah.
Other than that, the game is actually quite fun. I've been playing a lot of that, doing some combo training with the Ein and Helena, and having fun there.
Standbys.
Yeah. And then, let's see. Having fun with my Raspberry Pi 2. Now that I've gotten it and getting the issues ironed out with it. And now I've got a pretty good idea of what this little box can do, and it's actually quite impressive for the price.
Yeah, I saw some of the YouTube videos you linked me to, the like the PlayStation stuff. That's a whole lot of machine for $35.
Yeah, first build of that particular distribution with no real optimization, and it was running, Raystorm at 60 frames a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was dipping a little bit here and there, but I think that's more optimization than lack of power.
Yeah. It also reminded me that I really need to get Raystorm.
Yeah. It's on the Xbox 360 if you can't find the PlayStation version.
Cool.
This is also, all this Raspberry Pi stuff is going to turn into an article on Smashpad, so watch the future for that one. And a random one that I ended up picking up on the Xbox One is Pure Pool. I've always I liked Hustle Kings on the PS3 when that came out, and this is even better than that.
Wow. How much is it?
It's $10.
Nice.
Yes.
How many different games does it have? Like,
so far it's 4 or 5. It's got 8-ball, 9-ball, rotation, and I think cutthroat.
Nice.
So it's got all the standby ones that you would want to have, and I'm guessing they're going to add more as time goes on.
Yeah, I'd probably just spend all my time in 9-ball anyway, so...
Yeah. There's that. Yeah, if you haven't tried that one out, it's definitely worth the look. For $10, it's well worth it if you're looking for a nice pool game. And it definitely is a nice looking one at that.
Cool.
Yeah. How about yourself, Brandon?
Well, I'm just about finished with Dragon Age Inquisition. I've got the...
I mean, it's finished with you.
Yeah.
You sound
it's no, it's not that. It's just... The thing is, I'm just about finished with the main campaign. I'm literally, like, on the last place for it for the final battle. But the thing is, there's all this other stuff in the game that also could be done. So, just
like I could finish
customizing Skyhold. Yeah, customizing Skyhold, sort of tying up loose ends and stuff. Pretty much. Also, obviously, I'm still playing Remember Me as well. I don't have this on the show notes, but the other day I went and got Metro Redux. So, with Metro 2333 and Metro Last Light for Xbox One. Really been enjoying that. Basically, I actually managed to get a hold of the English translation of the novel that it's based on, and I was like, I gotta play this. So, for nostalgia kicks, I went back. I finally got all of my old data from my old Wii over to my Wii U, and so I've been playing Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars.
Nice.
Which is... Yeah, that is an old favorite of mine. That was literally the first RPG I finished. Yeah. From front to back, from beginning to end on my own. And, it's really hard to describe what was so amazing about that game when it first came out. But you have to understand, it was the first game that sort of took the whole Mario universe and sort of gave it some depth. It actually, gave it some continuity, and it was just it was an amazing game then. It's still very much an amazing game now. The game was just, obviously one of the best parts about it is it took the RPG basics and made it really simple to understand. Because, instead of taking the battle system and just attaching it to just menus, it actually, had it defense and attack and everything, and actually attached it to buttons that you could press on the controller instead of having to scroll through a menu. Also, the everything about it was just so cool. All the characters were just so wacky and eccentric. There was just so much to do in it. The whole world was just felt like it was wide open, and there was all this stuff you could do, and it had all these little Easter eggs and stuff. Oh, and let's not forget Cool-X. You remember Cool-X?
Yeah.
Cool-X was the hidden boss that was the toughest boss in the whole game. He was basically meant to be sort of a not so much a parody, but a shout out to old school Final Fantasy final bosses. Yeah. The
There's
ones
why
where
dropped the Final Fantasy IV boss theme for him.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And they literally gave you, and he was literally assisted by the elemental crystals and everything. Yeah. And it was, and he had the whole opening monologue for a Final Fantasy boss and everything. And he didn't move. It was just a static image.
Yeah.
And It was so fun. And also it has probably my favorite end credit sequence in all of gaming history, which was the parade.
Yeah.
That was just literally the only time that Luigi shows up in the whole game, too.
Just let Mario do all the work and shows up for the party.
Yeah. And I have to hand it to them. They managed to make Mario actually a fun and protagonist without him saying a single word in the entire game.
Well, Square Enix has been good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was
Squaresoft back then.
Yeah, Squaresoft Nintendo collaboration back then, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep. In fact, it was the last game they made for the Super Nintendo before they moved off to the Nintendo 64.
Square played really well with others back then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they did.
The original Breath of Fire was actually a collaboration with Square and Capcom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ah, good days, good days.
I guess we should get into our top story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Net neutrality. It's been ratified.
Yeah,
Yep.
Or at least, that's at least
It's now law, pretty much.
Yeah, well, it's been approved by the FCC, and now it's got a. Now Verizon and AT&T are going to sue. So, that's a thing.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
Well, Verizon already sued for this back in, 2011?
Yeah, it was, 2013, where this whole, debate thing started, and it's kind of, the Supreme Court basically said, hey, if you want to regulate them, they kind of hinted that Title II was the way they were going to do it. And so,
Yep.
Yeah, so this is going to happen, apparently. Another, 60 days or so, and it should actually get written into law, so...
Congratulations, America. You're now finally caught up with the rest of the Western world as far as the internet is concerned.
Now, if only it didn't take, the U.S. 30 years of getting slapped around by the cable companies to, realize that this was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So putting this really in a sort of gaming frame, because a lot of people are talking about how, this isn't going to be a big deal for gamers. I think it is. Because, for one thing, you've got PlayStation Vue and Sling TV right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if if we didn't have net neutrality, Comcast, they could just cut the legs out from under all this.
Of course they would, because they're dicks.
Well, I mean, it's a direct exclusively internet-based competitor to their services.
Yeah.
So without net neutrality, they'd have the go-ahead to just cut sufficient bandwidth from those services, and all of a sudden, all Comcast customers, which a lot of people are not by choice, would be stuck with their TV service.
Yeah.
Now they don't get to do that, and that's pretty much a green light for PlayStation Vue and Sling TV to just go full out now, because they aren't going to have the bandwidth issue hanging over them.
Yeah. No,
Another thing that hasn't actually come up, but is more of a theoretical. Think back to about end of 2000, early 2001, right before the Dreamcast pulled from the North American market, and Sega was getting involved with a lot of ISPs to push SegaNet.
Yeah.
Now, let's say those types of partnerships had kind of become the norm. Even now in 2015, you could have Comcast become the we'll say CenturyLink become the official internet service provider of Xbox Live. Now, if you're a CenturyLink provider, maybe you're well and truly fucked if you want to get on PlayStation Network and have a good experience in doing so. Again, another thing that would have been possible without net neutrality, that's not going to happen now.
Yeah.
Legally, it cannot happen.
Yeah. No fast lanes, no discrimination of packets, at least that's the theory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that's something that the game industry doesn't realize that it just dodged. A lot of people involved in the game don't realize they just dodged. So,
and as we all know, all the big communication companies are going to throw a little fit.
Oh yeah, there's going to be kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Have you already seen what Verizon's done?
Yeah, they've been, throwing a hissy fit and all that. But the interesting thing that I'm finding about this is that they're not really complaining about the, net neutrality or packet discrimination. What they're up in arms about is the poll access clause. They don't want to give that up because that would foster competition in the area.
Yeah,
that's where they make their money. So that's they don't want to make it easy for people like Google or other telcos, whatever, to get in on in a certain area. That's where their main complaint is. So.
Oh, but yeah, we dodged a bullet here.
Yeah. It's a step in the right direction.
It's definitely a good thing in almost every way possible. But people really don't understand just how close we came to this getting killed. Yeah. We were really, really close.
Yeah, it was 3-2 straight down party lines. That's how.
Yeah. And did you see how Fox? Yeah, and did you see how Fox News were advertising this? This is gonna, between the whole thing over the llamas and what color is that dress, in between it, they had the story about the net neutrality, and the whole thing was this is going to completely change how the average American interacts with the internet, and it's like, no, it isn't.
No, if anything, it's probably going to make it better. So yeah.
Yeah.
Nice there, Fox.
Yeah, it basically changes nothing from where we were before, and we'll make sure that nothing changes.
Yeah.
You do have some conspiracy theorist types out there saying, well, this is going to give government the ability to control content and censor things like that. Let me tell you,
I am
a lot less
worried.
They
can already do that. Yeah.
I am a lot less worried about government censoring internet content than I ever am about things like backdoor deals to shaft individual streaming services, which is, it's the latter that is much more likely to ever happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
for the record, if the government wanted to censor the internet, I got a little news for you. If they wanted to, they already could.
Yeah. They already
could. The software's out there. They could do it.
Also, wouldn't be surprised if in some instances they actually do.
Yeah. To me, what this thing, and this is just a personal thing, this is sort of like a minor sort of idea of what happens if at some point when the U.S. finally decides it wants to do like single-payer health care or something, that this little debate here is probably just a microcosm of what's going to happen when that comes around.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another time.
Yeah, this isn't a political show usually, but the story was.
Well, with net neutrality gets involved,
we could not talk about this.
Yeah.
So
all right.
The dress was blue and gold, by the way.
Actually, it was blue and black. It was the debate was it blue and black or white and gold? And as it turns out, it was blue and black, but because of the way the light was shining on it, it made it look white and gold.
Well, I used a color picker on the photo on Tumblr. It was blue and gold. My computer sees colors better than I do, so I'm gonna go with that one.
Right.
It's kind of irrelevant, but that's what that last couple of days on the internet has been.
Yeah.
And I just took one look at it and saw it's either the St. Louis Blues or the Nashville Predators, and neither one of them have a Stanley Cup, so just putting that out there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, off from net neutrality to another one of the
hot button
lightning rods of.
I don't want to say political, but political-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Anita Sarkeesian has been speaking again.
Yep.
Does anyone want to sum up what she said?
Well, basically, she gave out, for the longest time, she had in Sarkeesian's situation, she kind of unintentionally got roped into the whole Gamergate debate. And she's been sort of one of the big lightning rods in the gaming community because of her tropes against women series and her focus on the tropes in video games. And for the record, some of her criticisms are completely valid, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not gonna
but now she's actually put out sort of like what she calls the 8 things devs can do to make games less shitty for women.
Yeah.
And I'm quoting there. Yeah. But she basically gave out a few sort of guidelines to go by. And to be completely honest, I think most of these are completely respectable. Like, I can agree with most of these.
Reasonable, realistic, achievable, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to? Should we go through all 8 of them?
Well, might as well.
Because it's pretty. Okay, well, the first one she brought up was what she called avoiding the Smurfette principle.
Yeah.
Which basically means don't have just one female in a group of men. If it's like a small group of like 4 people or 3 people, okay. But we're talking 8, 9 people and only 1 woman in the whole group.
Yeah.
I can totally get behind that one.
Yeah, that was really something we should have probably gotten past in the 90s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Number 2, lingerie is not armor. Again, I can completely get behind this one.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's if it's like a fighting game or something, it's because fighting games by their nature are supposed to be over the top.
Yeah.
And weird, so it's you can kind of get away with.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we're talking to like RPGs, or action games or RTS games or something, just especially like the RPG, not just RPG specifically, but like MMOs and MOBAs in particular.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen some of the character arts for some of those games, and
now for the record, it's not that they have to stay in heavy armor all the time. Like you can do like what they do, like what BioWare does with Mass Effect or Dragon Age. They go out when they're out on the field, they're wearing the armor, but when they're in the castle or on the ship and everything, they can you have their normal wear.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, you can make their normal everyday wear as revealing as you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, because I mean, like I said, it used to be in the RPGs that the stronger the armor got for the women, the more and more revealing it got.
Yeah.
Like, that used to basically be the rule.
Well, AC -10 is a thing. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Number 3, have female characters of various body types. Once again, I can get behind this. I actually think that it's like in a fighting game. I think it's perfectly logical to have a woman character that's very muscular and maybe wrestler-esque or bodybuilder-esque.
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're a fighter, you're gonna have a bunch of muscles. As for body types on the thicker side, I can get behind that too.
Yeah, there's no reason they should shy away from that. I mean, hey.
Yeah,
this is something that's probably going to require a lot of listeners to kind of look up online. But there was a little bit of a push for Hanako Otani to be a playable character in Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, which would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm. Number 4, don't overemphasize female characters' rear ends, not any more than you would the average male characters. Okay, that one,
I don't think
that is going to depend on the character. Yeah, that one sort of depends on the character. Yeah, that's not something you can just do blanketly.
And when you talk about that, you're starting to get into the territory of like negotiating fan service, and fan service is always going to be a thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
fan service isn't going away. She's crazy if she thinks that's going to happen.
They're operating on the notion that fan service is ever going to go away. It's a fool's errand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fan service is as old as humanity. It's not. Yeah.
I would like to see a developer flip that on its head, though.
Haven't you ever heard of Choaniki?
Yeah.
There you go.
They try very hard not releasing those games here in the U.S., but they're a thing.
Yeah. Let's see. Don't advertise. Include more female characters of color.
Yeah.
I think we're actually already. Yeah, also completely understandable. I think we're actually already going pretty far in that way already. Especially if you want to look at Mortal Kombat X, the next game that's coming out.
Yeah.
You know, they've got pretty much women of pretty much every race in that game.
Yeah.
And some that don't exist.
Yeah.
Animate female characters to move the way normal women, soldiers, or athletes would move. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Fan service caveat aside, again, this is probably something we should have gotten past in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 7, record female character voiceover so that pain sounds painful, not orgasmic. Only problem with that is they kind of sound similar.
Well, yeah.
But I understand what she's saying. I get the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
don't over-sexify it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And number 8, include female enemies, but don't sexualize those enemies. Now, that one is, again, that's going to depend on the character.
Yeah,
that's just not something that you can blanket.
A lot of things, I think.
Yeah, that's going to be one that is going to be very hard for some developers to do, because they're going to be stuck in certain ways of doing things, and it's going to take a pretty creative mind to be able to break out of that.
Yeah.
Progress is a good thing to have, but I don't think it should ever come at the cost of creative freedom.
Yeah.
And
I think it should be put that
developers too much in that regard.
Yeah.
Like like I said, these guidelines she gives, I think they're all completely respectable, and I can definitely get behind most of these. But it should always be remembered, the one caveat, which is that plot trumps everything. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I can totally get behind a lot of these.
Yeah.
Especially the one with different body types. I actually think that is something that can definitely be done.
Yeah.
Especially in fighting games.
Yeah.
Because, we're already halfway there.
Yeah.
So.
One thing that I'm surprised that she hasn't touched on is you take the character Vanessa Lewis in Virtua Fighter.
Yeah.
Look at her in Virtua Fighter 4.
Then
look at her in Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution. Just, just do it. That's something that is definitely applicable to this discussion.
Yeah.
Or actually, maybe it's not Virtua Fighter 4 to Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution. It might be just VF4 to VF5.
Yeah,
they basically...
That is a character design that has changed.
They gave her a serious downgraded melanin.
Yeah.
Is the point.
Yeah, but what one of the things that I noticed about this whole discussion that she's having is... these points were all, should be and would be great if, they weren't like outright demands that this stuff must happen. So that's a step in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, it's a good tone.
Yeah. Given that the whole Gamergate thing kind of exploded, and she's trying to not be anywhere near that carcass anymore.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't blame her.
Yeah,
just I don't want to even touch that with a 10-foot pole. I really don't. I've gotten so sick of it.
Yeah. It's hard for me to look at any of these and say that I disagree with really any of them. I mean, it was a well thought out presentation, and I think it's a step in the right direction for us to.
I do think the bit that she mentioned about 50% representation or better in a large cast of characters might be a bit of a stretch, but other than that,
well, DOA 5.
DOA 5, yeah, but that's.
Yeah. But that has other problems.
Yeah, that is in DOA 5. That is in support of a particular theme that is not conducive to what she is trying to accomplish here.
No. Yeah, but of course she's going to push for more than 50%. Yeah. She is a feminist advocate.
Yeah.
But. Having female characters where it makes sense is
the key in any negotiation is to start off asking for the moon and the stars.
Yeah.
So
work your way down from there.
So moving on from the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Although I guess some people at Exceed would not say that this is moving away from the heavy stuff.
No, they've been drinking the heavy stuff over there.
Apparently. Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky SC text has been finalized, and the localization's now in the final stages. They released a good bit of information regarding the localization on Tumblr the other day, as well as some very amusing graphics, which was why the subject of drinking the heavy stuff has been brought up. It's a great way of explaining things, though.
Yeah.
But apparently SC has been in development at this point for 3 years and 10 months for the localization.
Yeah.
Almost twice as many files from the first game, twice as many chapters. 78 bottles of red wine consumed while translating the NPC text. and they don't even want to bring up the issue of coffee.
Yeah. So, yeah. Suffice to say, there is a shit ton of text in that game.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
In some instances, I think that's actually to the game's detriment.
Yeah.
Because I've felt, while trying to play that game, that it was a little bit long-winded at times.
Yeah. It's definitely got one of those kind of heavy Suikoden-type plots going on. The best advice I can give anyone just getting into it is don't get too hung up on the off the beaten path. Save that for subsequent playthroughs if you're really interested in the story, if you're really interested in the setting, then you go off and look into the lore.
Yeah.
The main quest and the side quests that you do, those are all it all wraps up in a fairly tight line, for lack of a better term that's coming to me. So if you just play it and not really scrutinize a whole lot of things about what this character said or what this book item says, then you'll probably just come out feeling like you're playing something of a really good RPG storyline along the lines of a Final Fantasy VI or, like I said, Suikoden.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of text going on in there, but the way it's delivered and how much of it is really optional makes it a lot easier to digest than it would be The Elder Scrolls, it is not.
No.
So for anyone who's on the fence about that and kind of intimidated by some of those graphics that have been going around explaining just how much text there is, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to encounter so little of that on a typical first playthrough that you won't even notice how much scope there is to it.
Yeah. So hopefully this means that second chapter is getting close to actually making its U.S. release date.
Yeah, the impression seems to be early summer.
Yeah.
As a vague kind of guideline, but we'll see how it ends up.
Yeah.
Look forward to it though. It's the first game was fantastic, and this is the one that really steps it up to more the level you would expect of a 50-60 hour epic.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, from there we'll go to our next story. Joe Madureira's Airship Syndicate is finally announcing their first project, which was Battle Chasers. Now, to explain this one, we kind of need to rewind a little bit. Joe Madureira, or Joe Mad for short, was one of the co-founders of Vigil Studios, the people behind the Darksiders games. Unfortunately, as we all know, they were owned by THQ, and we know what happened to THQ. But to rewind a little bit, before Joe Mad got into the video game business, he was a comic book artist. Specifically for the longest time, specifically for the longest time, he was the main artist on the X-Men books for Marvel. So if you were reading X-Men between 96 to 99, he was the primary artist on that. He's considered to be one of the comic book artists to help to bring sort of anime influences into his artwork.
And he's really good at it.
Yeah, and he's really, really good at it.
Yeah.
Mind-blowingly good at it.
One of my all-time favorite comic book artists.
Yeah. But after he finished his run on X-Men, he went over to Image, and he started his own creator-owned comic, which was the Sword and Sorcery comic Battle Chasers. Battle Chasers, if you ever read it, it is heavily influenced by his love of video games. It's like, especially his love for like RPGs. It didn't have a whole lot of issues. It only went for like 9 issues, and those issues could have a long wait time between them. Like, I think one of them was like a year and a half between issues. But it was one of the most fun comics of that era. I mean, it really was just a joy to read. Well, flash forward now. Joe Mad's back in the video game business. He started up his new studio, which is Airship Syndicate. And he's decided that their first project is going to be the new RPG game Battle Chasers, based on the original comic. And he's bringing the comic back, too.
Yeah, so a little transmedia action going on.
Yeah. And if anybody can do it, he can.
Yes.
It made kind of noise when the preview image that he put up on his Twitter account, and I remember looking at that sword, and I'm like, I recognize the shape of that sword. And so I went back into my comics collection and got my old Battle Chaser issues. I'm like, yep, that's Garrison's sword. But it's going, like he said, it's going to be an RPG with lots of character interaction and story. And he's also bringing the comic back. He hasn't said that if they've got a publisher for it yet. I'm not even sure if he's going to be the main artist on it, but
I would hope
it's going to be fun. I would hope so too. But the thing is, his art, he's one of those people where his art can be kind of labor intensive.
Yeah.
So, between that and also making the game,
that would be a lot.
I mean, game development's a pretty labor intensive task. So, if he can do it effectively, then by all means. I mean, because he's definitely, he is. And the thing is, I actually didn't know this. Darksiders is not the first video game he's worked on. He was a part of a couple of other projects beforehand that unfortunately didn't see the light of day. But he said before, he comics are cool and he loves comic books, but video games are his passion. So, this it's going to be fun to be able to go back into that universe again. Also, for those of you who,
those who haven't,
if you got, just for the record, if you've got a comic book store in your vicinity, go out, seek out the original 9 issues of the Battle Chasers comic because they're a lot of fun to read. Also, 2 words.
Is there a collected edition?
There was, but it's like $50-something because it was small press.
Yeah. I think Image actually has them on their website.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you can buy them from there.
Also, just 2 words I'm going to ask. Red Monica. And that's all I'll say about that.
Okay.
Just look it up. And from that, we go on to something that I'm really happy to hear about.
I had a feeling this was your story.
Yeah, this was mine. That and the Airship Syndicate. Okay, so some of the former developers from Rare, the people behind Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Donkey Kong Country, a bunch of those great old games. Anybody who knows about the history of Rare knows that they kind of suck now once they got bought up by Microsoft. Well, a few of those people, of the key people from Rare, jumped ship, and they went and started their own developer, which is Playtonic Games. And they're actually going to unveil their next project next month. And it looks like this is going to be another 3D platformer of the old school days.
Would be,
and I'm really happy. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that.
It's kind of their thing.
Banjo-Kazooie was just a blast back in the day. It was I got so many hours of enjoyment out of that game. I think John Tron said it best. When Rare was at their best, they were almost like the Beatles of the video game world.
Yeah.
They just pretty much anything they tried their hands at, they pretty much knocked it out of the park almost every time. They said, okay, we're going to make a 2D platformer. They gave us Donkey Kong Country, which revolutionized the way 2D graphics were. I mean, and the fact that they managed to get that on a Super Nintendo of all systems is pretty impressive.
Yes.
Seriously, if you ever play the old Donkey Kong Country games, remember that was on an old Super Nintendo, and look at how gorgeous it was.
Yeah.
Did a nice job.
Also, they said, Also, what came out the very same year the first Donkey Kong Country came out? Killer Instinct.
Yeah. Same time.
Yeah, they said, okay, let's see.
Not that I'm going to hold that against.
Yeah. They said, okay, so we're going to do a fighting game. What do? They come out with Killer Instinct, which again completely revolutionizes the genre. They gave us, oh, come on.
It had a lot of good ideas to it, but it took until Iron Galaxy got a hold of it. Well, not Iron Galaxy, Double Helix got a hold of it to really think a lot of those ideas through the logical conclusion. And
then they decided,
considering some of the problems that the original games had, I wouldn't say they revolutionized the genre, but they definitely
pushed it forward.
I would use the words technical breakthrough.
Mm-hmm. And then they said they were going to do their own 3D platformer, and they gave us Banjo-Kazooie, which was, like I said, that game I got so much joy out of. It was such a fun game, you know. And then they decided, you know, we'll make a sci-fi game, so they made Jet Force Gemini. Any you guys ever play that?
Yeah, I played a bit of that on the N64. It was a great game. They also made Blast Corps, which was my favorite N64 game ever.
Yeah, they did Blast Corps too. That was the one where you had to pilot all these vehicles to make sure this truck with a nuclear bomb on it didn't go off.
Yeah, because the truck has no brakes for reasons.
Yeah.
Because video games.
And so literally the whole game is you having to just take down every building in sight so that this thing doesn't run into it.
Yeah. Not only does
it was a ridiculous
not have brakes, it also doesn't have steering.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous premise, but it worked.
Yeah.
And then they made two of my favorite games of all time. After that, they took one of their they were working on another sort of kiddie platformer like Banjo-Kazooie, and that was Conker. And they decided about somewhere halfway through, hey, you think this game is too kiddie and schlocky and sugary? Well, we ended up getting Conker's Bad Fur Day, which, on top of being infamous for its crude humor, I actually would argue is one of the best video game satires ever made.
Probably.
It was pretty funny. I mean, that's the game that starts out with you coming off of a bender. So
yeah, it was that game has points where childish humor to hysterically funny.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason everyone remembers the Great Mighty Pooh, because it was just a completely. I mean, it had its own musical number. Just think about that.
Just because they could.
Yeah, just because they could. And the thing is, it also has one of the darkest, most depressing endings of its type, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. I mean, that game gets dark very quickly as it gets towards the end of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Rare's last N64 game, if I recall right.
Yeah.
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 I think then after that, they were trying to just see how far they could get away with.
Yeah.
What they could get away with.
And here's the thing. Did you know that whole game was voiced by only like 3 people?
No, I did not know that.
Oh, okay. The primary, actually, I think it was like 2 people, and most of the voices were provided by the primary designer and project director for the game. So Conker, Great Mighty Pooh, all of them was his voice. And the funny thing is, you can kind of tell because the game is loaded with like British idioms. So, and then after that, they were in the middle of another game called Dinosaur Planet when Shigeru Miyamoto found it and said, "Hey, let's stick Star Fox on this." And then they came out with Star Fox. They came out with Star Fox Adventures, which, as I've said before, is a major nostalgic favorite of mine, but it's definitely got some problems.
Yeah.
Not the least of which, where they basically took Crystal and turned her into the damsel in distress character. Yeah, because if you've ever looked at sort of the original plans for the original Dinosaur Planet game, she was actually meant to be like a secondary character that stayed with you through most of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your main character was like this dog character with a sword, and he was supposed to be the one who primarily did melee attacks, and she was the one who was supposed to do magic attacks.
Yeah.
So, but then again, they did introduce Crystal to the world, so yeah. I have to give them that. One of my favorite video game characters. But then, they got bought up by Rare and
Microsoft.
I mean, they got bought up by Microsoft, and well, we all know what happened there.
Yeah,
but
we got Viva Pinata, which actually I'm not gonna rag on that game. I actually like that game a lot.
Yeah, but then they also gave us Grabbed by the Ghoulies, and
We try not to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of a bad memory. Try to pretend it doesn't exist. Oh, something else I forgot. They also did Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That was actually... That game has its problems, but I actually really enjoyed it back in the day.
Yeah, kind of a precursor to Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it brought a lot to the table that kart racing games hadn't had in the past. A big old hub world exploration, different types of racing, including planes and boats, boss characters. They kind of expanded the kart racer. So, Rare, back when they were on, they were a great innovator in the game world. And unfortunately, that Rare no longer exists, but a lot of the folks who helped make it that jumped ship and formed their own company, which is this, Playtonic Games. And they're working on their next project, and it's coming out next month, and I can't wait.
Coming out next month or being announced next month?
I mean, it's announced next month.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So
I wish it was coming out next month, but no.
You say it's former Rare staff. Are any of the high rollers involved, like the Stamper Brothers or...
I think so, yeah.
Because if the Stamper Brothers are on board, it's going to be basically
big.
a revitalization of what Rare was. Those guys
Suddenly this can't be understated.
Yeah. But, I mean, these guys, I hope this does well because I do kind of miss the old 3D platformers, and I do hope they make a comeback.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here
the
feeling
gaming world was
the fact that the term old school 3D platformer is even a thing.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, the gaming world was more fun and more delightful when those were still a major player. So
yeah, we haven't seen one of those in quite some time, so we're due. Well, we had Knack, but that wasn't really a platformer.
We won't. I don't want to make that comparison.
Yeah, let's not do that.
No.
We got kind of an upbeat episode here. It's going to be going downhill toward the end anyway, but
yeah,
let's.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
look forward to that.
Yeah, following up on last week, we know something's happening regarding Rock Band, and now there are some rumblings that Activision is taking Guitar Hero out of mothballs.
Not really all that surprised.
Yeah, they only said from the beginning that they were taking a break with it. And the timing probably couldn't have been any better because people were starting to get a little bit burned out on those games.
Yeah.
But they stopped before they'd completely beaten it into the ground, and so once the new Rock Band, once the new Guitar Hero, whatever form they may take, finally hit the market, there will be a good deal of hype for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a crazy thought for you. What if the new Rock Band is the new Guitar Hero?
I mean, Activision recalling Harmonix and getting the band back together, if you will.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. And certainly not out of the question either.
No, I mean, our Harmonix is an independent entity right now, so they could basically take contract work from.
Would that be a case of EA screwing the pooch, though?
They haven't been involved with EA for quite some time.
Yeah. What I'm saying is EA probably didn't sever those ties thinking that would happen.
Probably not. But it's like, oops.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like weird. If you start up Rock Band now, you get instead of the EA logo, it's been replaced by the Madcast logo.
Well,
that's weird.
That's fitting.
Yeah. So there's that.
Yep. This next one's interesting. I'm not exactly sure how they're what the ins and outs are of the deal, but apparently there's some talk about Mortal Kombat 10 not having the Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus requirement. So,
yeah, this is really.
Well, I just get it. Yeah, I'll just say it. If they can pull it off, just for the record, it's made my respect for NetherRealm Studios go up tenfold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as a technical thing goes, that's easy to do. That's just basically go over to Microsoft and say, okay, yeah, for online permissions, yeah, just make it free for everybody. You can do that. They've not done it ever, but
no,
I don't see why they couldn't.
Yeah.
So what's the catch though? Like, why isn't this becoming more of a thing? Do they have to pay like a fee to Sony and Microsoft for not having that requirement? Because that's how I'd think it'd be if the game doesn't require those subscriptions, and people who aren't paying those subscriptions have to or can still get online. I would think that the money changing hands would have to be from the studio to Sony and Microsoft.
Yeah, I'd imagine there's probably some sort of percentage that they might have worked out ahead of time, based on how many copies of the game get sold and whatever. Then there's a percentage of a subscription that they would probably have to pay to Microsoft and Sony. So.
Yeah,
but
if there is a percentage, I have little doubt they'll have a problem. I have a little doubt that they'll be able to pay it very easily because this game's going to sell like crazy when it comes out. So,
I'm not sure if it's quite going to do MK9 numbers, but it'll be big.
The buzz for MK9.
Well, it's kind of hard to beat.
Bigger than MK9, so
yeah,
I would be surprised if it doesn't do more than MK9 does.
Could be, yeah.
And I know it's literally one of the only two games I've got pre-ordered for the next few months. So.
Yeah, I've got to get
the other one's Witcher
in order.
Yeah. Only other thing I've got pre-orders is Witcher 3, and that the only other thing I got pre-orders is Witcher 3, and that doesn't come out till May. So
currently doesn't come out till May. It may ship in September or October for all we know.
Well, they've already delayed it a couple times. So.
Yeah, but they're not afraid to do it. If they feel it's not ready, they will delay it again. They're not the kind of developer that's going to rush out, crappy products. They learned that from Witcher 2 already.
And to be completely honest, CD Projekt Red is one of the few studios that I'm completely okay with them, delaying a game if they don't think it's quite up to snuff yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, it's going to take a lot to be able to, one-up Witcher 2. I mean, that, and it already looks like, and from what we're getting from Witcher 3, it looks like it's going to be a serious game changer. So, like, I seriously think that when Witcher 3 comes out, it's going to be like a new benchmark that a lot of other games of its type are going to be measured against for a while.
Yeah, I think it's going to out Skyrim.
And I mean,
Skyrim.
Yeah, and we already know that CD Projekt Red is planning for this to be their last Witcher game. Yeah. So,
make it the
that takes
one
guts in this day and age too, to say this is the last game of this series.
Yeah,
and we're sticking to that.
Yeah,
if it's a huge,
but
success,
in their defense,
you don't think they might consider a Witcher 4?
Well, because it's going to be the end of Geralt's story. They've already said that.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that, they'll go with another character, but if they do that...
Mass Effect 4 is going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it probably won't be under the Witcher moniker anymore.
Yeah, they'll call it something else.
And for the record, after Witcher 3, we already know what the other project is they're going to be working on, and that's Cyberpunk 2077.
And I want to see more of that game right now.
Yeah, I want to see that very, very badly. Man, have you seen just some of the things that they're planning on doing with that game?
It's
just the.
I've seen their dev talks, but I haven't actually seen any footage of it.
Yeah, well, nobody has, but just the ideas they're putting out there, the thing about all the different foreign languages and needing to use a translator and just all the different things you'll be able to do. I mean, it'll be the first Cyberpunk game that really feels like it'll be a true Cyberpunk game.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah.
And if anybody can pull it off, they certainly can.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're not afraid to, put the resources behind it.
Yeah. And they're not afraid to go in directions that a lot of other, game developers are willing to go.
Yeah.
Seriously, just think about, the romance scenes and stuff from Witcher 2, specifically.
Yeah.
If you can call them that. But I mean, seriously, that is something that no other major game developer was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that went to that level.
Well, E3 is coming up, so hopefully we'll see some more of that.
Oh, yeah. I'm certainly hoping so.
Yeah.
Plenty of it.
I'd be surprised if we didn't.
Oh, we already know they are. I looked at the ESRB page. It's there. But, alright, going off to that, we got some news for Street Fighter V.
Yeah, new trailer. Confirming what we pretty much already knew from the previous one. We finally get some gameplay footage of Charlie Nash.
Yeah.
Making his first appearance in a canon Street Fighter game since Alpha 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's apparently been hanging out with Rugal.
A few KOF characters, really. He's been pretty heavily reinvented. We've seen Rugal's genocide cutter out of him. We've seen Iori Yagami's running grab. A few other moves. He's got teleports all day,
he's got
including a really crazy ground-to-air one that just looks nuts.
Yeah. It's got mid-air sonic booms now.
Yep.
So, that kind of intimates to me that maybe he's no longer a charged character.
Yeah. I'm starting to wonder if maybe he's no longer a roster character.
I think maybe he's a
this is gonna...
I'm thinking maybe he's a sub-boss, if not a boss.
I could see that.
He might be a character-specific sub-boss. Because, I mean, the thing is, you got to think about how this affects the game plot-wise. Anybody who's played Street Fighter over the years knows that Guile's primary motivation for going into the Street Fighter tournament and trying to kill Bison is that Bison is the guy who killed Charlie.
Revenge.
Yeah. And now Charlie's alive, and he's back.
Yep.
And a cyborg, apparently.
And if you think back to Street Fighter 4, this is what Abel didn't want to talk about. Guile tried to get that out of him, and Abel knows things. So I think, I don't know if it's going to confirm Abel for Street Fighter V, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And the other thing to consider is the whole third eye, and I brought this up the last time we talked about this on the show. That is a visual very closely affiliated with the Illuminati faction, Urien, Gil, Necro, those guys.
Yeah.
And so it looks like it's going to be a game that ties the Street Fighter 3 and Street Fighter 4 stories together.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Lord, that just reminded me of that boss fight with Gil in Street Fighter 3 and just how much it pissed me off.
Just don't kill him when he has meter.
Yeah.
Turtle up, try to bait out that full screen super and then run in and finish him off.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna have issues in the next round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just make sure that you don't eat said super when you finally do bait it out.
Yeah. That So it looks like 5 is probably, as you said, going to be set between 4 and 3. So that's going to be interesting.
I mean, the only question remaining is whether 3 happened first.
Yeah.
And if 5 becomes the last game we have in the timeline, then that's going to be even more interesting.
I guess we'll have to see how old some of these characters are.
Yep.
And see
if we're using character age as an indicator, you'll notice that in Street Fighter 3, Akuma was starting to go gray.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the first things to look for.
Yeah. So if we see Akuma, that might be what tips us off.
So last week, Kotaku and Polygon had started talking about the 3-year anniversary of the PlayStation Vita and asking valid, if really cynical, questions about it. Sony has a better idea. They're just going to have a giant party sale, pretty much.
It's just, you know what? We don't care if you question the PS Vita. We've got a lot of people who own it already. Let's just give them some discounts and a few freebies here and there.
Yeah.
The Atelier Arland trilogy is going for $16 a piece, which is a markdown of well over half.
Yeah.
You've got the Dracula X Chronicles Castlevania for $7.49.
Yeah, which you should pick up if you
yes.
don't have it already.
Jet Set Radio for $5.
There's a lot of good deals there. I think it's still going on, isn't it?
I sure hope so.
Otherwise...
Yeah, it's going on through tomorrow.
Okay.
So Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1, the remake of the first Neptunia, that's $16.
If you want to get your JRPG on your PS Vita, then got a very good opportunity to do so.
That's what it's for.
So that's cool. More Sony news.
Yep. Drive Club.
PS Plus version is not happening. Well, what? Wait, maybe it is.
The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and we really can't be too sure what's going on.
Yeah.
Does the drama ever stop with this game?
I don't know. I'm starting to think that they're deliberately sending cross signals at this point.
The announcement that it was uncertain. The announcement that it was uncertain came from the president of Sony Computer Entertainment Europe, and then the follow-up announcement that it was still a sure thing came from an anonymous spokesperson, which we don't have to guess why they chose to remain anonymous.
Yeah.
So wait and see, I suppose, but I really hope this happens because the whole deal once the launch kind of fell on its face was that they'd get the game finished up and polished and everything and looking great, and then they would release the PlayStation Plus edition for the masses who would come in and see that Drive Club really is a really solid game once you actually pick it up and play it.
Yeah.
And they'd build their the community largely out of players who weren't there for all the drama.
Yeah.
And if they're pulling the PlayStation Plus edition out from under it, then that's just going to undercut the entire thing and potentially risk it becoming a total loss.
Yeah. And also, you've also got to figure that with the major deal that they made about Drive Club coming to PS Plus, this was announced way back during the PS4's launch. They'd get a hell of a lot of bad PR if they reneged on that now.
It was the selling point of PlayStation Plus on PS4.
Yeah.
I mean that's just what it was.
Yeah.
And so this talk now really just makes no sense.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that one. But,
speaking of
stuff that makes no sense, yeah. More stuff going on about the Order 1886. And I actually have a little bit of a comment to make on this as far as the game goes, because I did get to play it a little bit at a friend's place. It's actually quite good.
For what it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's short. I played a little bit, but my friend, had the controller most of the time, so he was playing it, and I was I enjoyed what I saw and the little bit that I played, but I don't know if I'd pay $70 for it.
Yeah, that's the big question, because if this had been a $20 budget title, or as we discussed last week, possibly something to champion PlayStation Now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would have fit perfectly.
Yeah.
It's just not something that, 5 to 7 hours is. I'm not going to pay $10 to $12 an hour for my games. I'm just not.
Yeah, but keep in mind, this is about as good of a showcase piece for the PS4 as you can get. There are no pre-rendered cutscenes in this game at all.
Well, that would have been great if it made launch. I think now we're kind of past that point.
Yeah, it still shows.
Yeah.
It still shows how good PS4 games could look. But anyway, I suppose we should probably talk about what what the problem was this week. Developer, what was his name? Don't remember what his name was. Let me clicky click.
It wasn't a producer or a director or anything.
He was the developer of the lead developer for combat systems on that game, and so he was kind of miffed that the game was getting low scores, and was basically saying, well, why do we even send these people games? Yeah, that's probably not a very good thing to say, and he realized that very quickly and pulled those tweets. Mm-hmm. But they live on in the article.
As is the way of the internet. Yeah.
And, for what it's worth, I can kind of understand where he's coming from. He spent a lot of time, and, the parts of the game that he worked on were actually the best parts of the game. So, It does bring up the whole, Duke Nukem Forever threat from a few years back, though, because
PR firm that was promptly fired.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that was not a good thing.
But that was coming from someone who actually was in a position to threaten review copies and and ads and things like that. So hopefully this blows over, but it's not good press for a game that really needs any good press it can find, and otherwise probably just silence would be for the best.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll say one thing for the order: as soon as there's a decent price drop or sale or on Amazon or whatever, where I can get it for about $40 or so, I'll pick it up.
I'll probably hold out for 20, but it's not something that I'm saying no to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if it's not going to give you any incentive to replay it, then I just think 20 is as high as I'm going to go.
Yeah. Well, the only real incentive to replay that is to enjoy the story again, and for that game's part, the story is actually very good.
That's good.
So.
Speaking of Duke Nukem Forever, have any of you guys played it?
Yep, I've got it on Steam, and I think I finished it.
The 360 version.
Yeah.
Be completely honest, I actually kind of liked it.
It's kind of a guilty pleasure game because it's not terrible. Yeah. It's super rough, but it's not all that bad.
Well, I mean, there's no way it couldn't be super rough because it was literally a patchwork.
Yeah.
Of 4 different development studios.
4 different development studios, different art styles are in there. There's different engine assets that are in there. It's kind of a mess.
It was a remake of a game from the late 90s that was never finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you try taking it as a brand new product for, modern times, you're not going to enjoy it. But, I think you kind of have to play it understanding its pedigree and understanding that this is a game that probably has more value as
a cautionary tale.
That too.
Yeah,
what I was going to say is just I know it's on the tip of my tongue.
Those are a really good way of showing you how you should not try to auteur the game. Because, part of the problem with this was that the lead designer kept trying to stick stuff into it.
Yeah.
Just random shit out of the blue.
There was a lot of that in that game.
I guess what I'm trying to say is it's a game that it's nice to have just for the fact that we, almost didn't get it at all.
Yeah.
For all that effort that went into it, and so.
And I'll point out also that the single player DLCs packages that they released for that game are arguably better than the main game itself.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, the one thing about the main campaign I really loved was the level of interactivity that you had with the environment.
Yeah.
Like things like pinball machines that you could play.
Yeah.
And that segment with the RC car.
Yeah.
And
there was a lot going on in that game. It's kind of a shame that it turned out as as poorly as it did.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it could have been a lot worse.
Although for the record though, the RC car thing is just something they got from Shadow Warrior. So
yeah. So Nintendo.
Yeah.
Mr. Iwata, what is it that you're smoking, and can I get some of it?
At least we have a clearer picture of their current worldview, if you will. Is it going to keep them in black ink? We'll see. They did just recently kind of get their own house in order, and it would be a shame if anything screwed that up now.
Yeah.
But we have context to go on. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Seriously, that man is smoking something. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's of this planet. But
it's
I kind of want some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. We do know that the whole quality of life thing is not what we thought it was.
Yeah, it's not their next system. It's not the system that I was thinking they were going to. That was going to feature that controller that Miyamoto implied needs to happen for the next F-Zero. It's just them breaking into other businesses, which is in their DNA. It's been a long time since they've done it.
Yeah.
But but they're really it sounds like they're trying to rethink themselves as possibly almost a transmedia firm. If that, do you think that's a good way to put it, or?
Probably. They want to be a transmedia firm, but they want to be a transmedia firm the way that Disney is, except whereas Disney is motion picture based, I think they want to be like Disney, but they want to be video game focused.
Yeah. Built from that.
And then spread out from there. Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, I would be perfectly okay with Nintendo doing that. They've got some properties that could definitely work well, but they have to be done properly. You have to give it to the right people.
Yeah.
We already saw what happens when you give one of their major properties to someone that has no friggin' idea what they're doing. So,
and we're about to see it again.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah,
it does lend credence to that Wall Street Journal
Zelda
article.
Netflix thing.
Yeah. But like further, the idea of like seeing maybe Shigeru Miyamoto like directing an animated film.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's already, he already directed some short films recently.
Yeah.
For
Wii U and 3DS.
So, yeah, and it looks like he's sort of getting. Yeah. So it looks like he's kind of getting into that mode. So. I mean, the man is a very talented, creative artist in a number of areas. So.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. I think if Nintendo manages to turn it around and put some branch out, as it were. I mean, they started with playing cards, so I don't see why they wouldn't.
It's
be able
in their
to just
DNA.
do other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They could do.
I think maybe perhaps. Yeah, I hope. They've learned some of their lessons over the last few years, and they're a bit smarter about it. So.
Yeah. I think one of the most important lessons that they can learn is that marketing really does matter.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so from that, we have to go to some sad news.
Yeah. Okay. So,
this is Sega. Your son participates well in class, but does not follow directions.
Yeah. Sega leaving the console market.
This is not what I told them to do.
No.
They did certain things that I laid out 2 weeks ago, but I said to leave Nintendo and Microsoft platforms behind, but not all platforms.
Yeah.
I said to rebrand, but not to... I'm not even sure what to call it.
Kill a brand?
So yeah, they're leaving the console market behind entirely. This is another part of the whole restructuring thing, and now all these acquisitions the last couple of weeks are starting to make more sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, going for a more online and mobile focused company, which it doesn't really rub me the right way, but whatever. Gotta do what they gotta do, I suppose.
The way they see it is they see the mobile markets as being what's going to be. They think that the mobile markets, they've got more opportunities in that than the standard console business. So yeah.
The question I'm wondering is whether they consider the 3DS a console or a mobile device.
I guess that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
I just wonder what's going to happen with all of those teams they've got on board that are not geared at all toward that sort of business, because you look at PC and mobile, AMR&D isn't that kind of company.
No.
Isn't that kind of team.
No.
You've got, I forget what they're called now, but the Overworks staff and the teams associated with them that worked on the Yakuza games, they're not geared toward that.
No. Either this is, either they're going to start spitting out studios left and right, and presumably IPs, which I think
has already begun.
Started to happen.
Condemned, Toe Jam and Earl.
Yeah, or they're
no longer Sega property.
No longer Sega properties. Either that's starting to happen on a wide scale, or they're just starting to do that little piecemeal here and there, and this is a very, very well calculated feint. We won't know until further on, but
the actual makeup of Sega Sammy Holdings is what's going to determine what all this means.
Yeah.
Atlas, I would imagine, completely unaffected.
Yeah, I think Atlas is probably safe.
They're a part of Sega Sammy Holdings, but they are not necessarily a part of what is now Sega Games.
Yeah.
The new name of the company.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think Atlas is just going to keep on doing their own thing because they're a money factory.
Yeah.
For Sega Sammy Holdings right now. They're getting so much mileage out of Persona 4 alone. And then they got Persona 5 about to come out, and Etrian Odyssey is a good seller for them.
Yeah.
So I don't think Atlas is going anywhere. They're just going to keep being Atlas.
Yeah.
But the real question is what happens to all those internal teams, because
like Sonic Team.
We'll be getting to that in a moment. But I think they're actually one of the ones that could adapt very well.
Yeah.
Because you've already got, I mean, they are the Phantasy Star Online team. Yeah. So, you've already got Phantasy Star Online 2, which is a PC game, suddenly now part of their focal point. Whatever happens with Sonic Team, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Whether that focuses on Sonic the Hedgehog in particular or not remains to be seen. But, I mean, just a moment here. Sega Studios was... yeah, Creative Assembly, that's a... that's a PC-centric
the Total
team.
War games.
We also did Alien Isolation. So.
Yeah. That was literally the first survival horror game they ever did, and they freaking knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Secret Level, I would say, isn't well geared to the PC at all. But I would say they're not really very well geared to anything at all.
Right now, yeah.
Well, no, they made Golden Axe Beast Rider, they made the Iron Man games.
Yeah.
They're not a big loss.
Yeah.
Hardlight Studio looks to be one of their centerpieces moving forward because that's a mobile arm. Relic Entertainment, that's going to be a centerpiece for them moving forward. Sega Networks, of course.
Yeah.
But AMR&D is one I'm worried about. CS1 I'm worried about. That's the Yakuza team and the former Overworks staff and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, this kind of puts a finer point on what Kalinske was saying recently, though.
Yes.
That this was that Sega's problems were really not inevitable, and if you've got a management team and you've got all this amazing IP. And you can't figure out what to do with it, maybe you need better management.
It takes effort to fail miserably.
Yeah, it really does.
And I mean, there's really no reason the Dreamcast should have failed as hard as it did.
Yeah. Well, the only reason it did was, well, two reasons. The PS2 just kind of snuffed the air out of its sails. And the fact that EA basically put the nail in the coffin of that one.
Yeah. Well, the Saturn wasn't very kind to EA, the previous generation, so there was history that motivated that decision.
Yeah.
Even though I think Sega Sports did a really good job of filling the void.
Yeah.
But yeah,
also keep
Tom
in
Kalinske.
Mind that, EA and Sega have been kind of butting heads for basically the entire time that they've been working together. It's kind of been, co-opetition. That's what I'd like to call it. But anyway, Kalinski's
20 years of wrong decisions. I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about some of the stuff some of the dirty laundry that Kalinske has kind of brought forth.
Yeah. Some of which I hadn't even known about until that article.
You mean the Sony cooperation?
Yeah, I went back and listened to the last few chapters of Console Wars to see if it had been mentioned in there, and it wasn't.
Yeah, which makes you wonder how much more dirt he has on them.
Yeah, probably quite a bit.
So for those who don't know, basically back in 1996, for context, this is just after the Saturn had launched. All the systems were on the market, and Tom Kalinske was actually in dialogue with Sony about possibly working together in what would be the 6th generation of consoles.
Sixth.
Yeah, 6th generation. This would have essentially made Sega a de facto first party for Sony on the PS2, and the Dreamcast and the PS2 essentially would have been one system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you can imagine that, you can imagine how incredible it would have been.
Yeah. I mean, the Dreamcast the Dreamcast as it was already had a huge influence on the PS2 product.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many games you can go back to on the PS2 that reflect what the Dreamcast was about. But if you take those formative games on the Dreamcast and just dump them all over to the PS2 and build a first party around that with Sony's backing, you've changed gaming history.
Yeah.
And
we could have had Sonic Adventure and Jak and Daxter on the same platform.
Shenmue with
and
the
Jak and
Daxter.
Daxter.
PS2.
Yeah. Shenmue.
And don't forget Ratchet and Clank.
Yep.
And don't forget Ratchet and Clank either. That's 3 awesome 3D character action games on one system.
Yeah. So anyway, they were having this dialogue, and Sony was all into it. They were on board.
Yeah.
Kalinske takes it back to Sega of Japan, and the board swats it down, just dead.
Yeah.
And we all know how that story ended. The Saturn kind of got drubbed in competition with the PS1, and the Dreamcast. In Japan, it did respectably. Over here,
did okay. It got a very rabid cult following, but it didn't get the market numbers.
Kalinske kind of checked out before any of this had a chance to play out. Bernie Stolar was empowered and set out on his crusade to kill the Saturn.
Yeah.
Kalinske left in '96, so I would imagine he left a couple months after that meeting.
It was probably what caused it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm done. Goodbye. And now he's running Leapfrog, which is doing very well.
Would love to see him get back into the game industry, like into major game industry matters.
Yeah. Which brings us to Sonic Team.
Yeah, Takashi Iizuka, who, to be fair, is kind of an odd one. Current head of Sonic Team, and he remains defiant. He swears he will keep making Sonic games on consoles.
Yeah.
In spite of all this,
if he does, how is he going to do it? I mean,
not with the blessing of his higher ups, apparently.
Yeah.
It's definitely. I don't know. Maybe he's just popping off out of frustration, or
maybe,
or maybe he knows something we don't.
Could be.
Yeah.
Just
makes you wonder if Sonic Team might be getting spun off.
Maybe.
Lord.
I mean, if you think about the Sonic franchise, okay, PSO2, important PC game for Sega, doing very well where it's been released.
Yeah.
The Sonic franchise has been a money pit for years, and every time they have a rare success with it, it seems like they can't disown it fast enough.
No.
Have they diminished the value of the brand to the point where they can cut it loose and?
Well, prior to Sonic Boom, I'd say no. But after Sonic Boom, yeah.
Actually, I don't think Sonic Team actually had much to do with Sonic Boom.
It's kind of irrelevant. It's still the franchise, you know.
Yeah. But I'm not sure you can necessarily blame Sonic Team for that.
No.
Yeah.
Well, if they had nothing to do with that game, then no. But you know, still something that reflects on the brand itself.
It was smaller studios, but smaller studios getting fed copious amounts of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you want to blame them for Sonic 2006, you can go ahead and blame them for that all you want. Although, not Yuji Naka, because I found out he actually jumped ship on that game halfway through. So
it's like,
that should have been a fucking sign.
Yeah.
What more do you need to see to...
It's like, I'm out of here. It's like throwing up his hands in frustration and just walking out the door. It's like...
That's enough Sega for my lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that actually takes us to our question of the week for this week. Respond with what you got available. YouTube comments, Tumblr, Smashpad, whatever you got. How do you envision an alternative gaming industry where the deal that Tom Kalinske brokered with Sony had actually played out, and the Dreamcast and PS2 were won? Like, how do you envision the rest of gaming history thus far playing out, and the implications thereof?
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, the controller wouldn't be so unwieldy. That's for sure.
Yeah. We should also point out the significance of that question, though.
Yeah.
It's basically asking, what would have happened if Sega had gotten out of the console market sooner?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
No, it really is. I mean, that was what he brokered, and the board said, no, we're going to live and die by the hardware, and this is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, if Sega had backed Sony in the 6th generation, I'm hoping for some really creative responses to this one, because there's just a lot of potential outcomes, and
like imagine if Phantasy Star Online was on the PS2 and had the financial backing of both Sega and Sony behind it.
Yeah, it could have been far bigger than what it already had been.
I think the network adapter would have been built into the first wave of PS2s.
Yeah.
Imagine, what they could have done with the Sonic property on a Sony system.
Yeah.
Well, there was Sonic Heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine a Virtua Fighter game, first party, on a Sega-backed PlayStation.
That was basically what Virtua Fighter 4 turned out to be anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
but it would have been earlier.
Yeah.
It's true. There was a Dreamcast port of that well into development, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Before Sega pulled the plug, and they had to go back and
redo it. I mean, they were working on the Naomi 2 on that at that time, so it wouldn't have been a hard port to the Dreamcast. Imagine a PS2 launch with Soul Calibur and Street Fighter EX3. Oh wait, don't imagine that.
Yeah, no.
Just don't do that. So that's the question.
The one I like to keep coming back to is Shenmue.
Yeah.
Imagine Shenmue.
The biggest problem for Shenmue, I will maintain, was just the installed base of the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that Nintendo's heaviest hitters are dealing with right now on the Wii U.
Yeah.
Even though the Wii U it has sales numbers that the Dreamcast would have killed for.
Yeah.
It's all a question of installed base. So what would some of those stranger games, Seaman,
Seaman, I completely forgot about. Oh, and dude, that just reminded me.
Yeah.
That just reminded me, Seaman, Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Oh.
R.I.P.
Leonard Nimoy, R.I.P. He was the narrator for Seaman.
I forgot about that.
I knew that was going to find its way in here somehow.
Yeah.
Oh, I gave us a sad.
Yeah. So that's the question.
Imagine Power Stone. Imagine Power Stone on the PS2.
I can see it.
Yeah. Basically, Sega had the chance to ride the wave of the PlayStation 1 into the 6th generation and didn't.
Nope. And they've got no one to blame but themselves.
So, yeah.
Keep in mind, this also means that Sonic would have become the mascot for Sony.
Yeah.
Along with, Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
But as far as like a headlining icon,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think he would have.
He'd be in good company.
Yeah, he would have been.
I mean, you know what they used to call Crash Bandicoot when it was in development?
What was that?
They called it Sonic's ass. Because that's what you were looking at through the whole.
Yeah.
Through the whole game.
Yeah, except for the sections where you're running towards the screen, which I always hated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Then you were just
Whoever
staring
thought
at
that
Sonic's
was a good game
coin.
design.
I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, it was the first major 3D platformer, so
yeah,
we all have to start somehow. Mm-hmm. It still actually holds up pretty well.
Market?
I think it did, yeah. It was like a PlayStation beginner, wasn't it?
No, it was no launch title.
No, it wasn't a launch title. But
when it came out, it was in the CD jewel case.
Yeah.
And those weren't introduced until later.
Yeah.
All right, but I do think it beat Super Mario 64 at launch. So
I got to check this out now. Okay, so
let's see.
September 9th, 1996. So it beat Super Mario 64 to the US market by 3 weeks.
But I think I'm pretty sure that Mario 64 came out in Japan on like June 23rd of 96.
Yeah.
So it was out first technically.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Like as far as on a global, June 23rd, 1996 in Japan.
Yeah. Assuming you could find the system.
Yeah, that was a problem.
So. Fun speculation, at least.
Yeah, this should be one of the funner questions of the week.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping for some creative responses.
Yeah.
So, YouTube comments, Tumblr,
whatever you got.
Smoke signals.
The show.
Yeah.
Smoke signals.
Morse code, we'll accept that too.
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah. Just be sure you feed them before you send them out, please.
Yeah. Maybe put it on that there Pony Express.
Yeah.
That's still a thing, isn't it?
I think they call it the post office now.
Yeah.
I think we got ourselves a show this week.
Yep.
And a good one.
Yeah. With that, I am Filippo D'Onofrio.
I'm Patrick Mifflin.
I'm Brendan Perkins.
Update successful.